Welcome back to Talk Talk Live, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining me here on the night where two great results happened to me. Number one, these are sports. These are sports results, quite simply. Of course, as I'm wearing tonight, Arsenal beat Tottenham 2-1, and Tottenham get battered everywhere they go. Off to the shadow realm you go. To the dark side of Seven Sisters you go. To the toilet bowl. And, North London is red. Done. And London is red. Period. Anyways, back to it. Yes, and surprisingly, the Raptors beat up on the world champion Boston Celtics. And by, I'd say, a 23-point share. Oh, my God. What's going on here? No, that's 13-point win by the Toronto Raptors. But again, every dog has his day, and today was the day of the Toronto Raptors. So the Tankathon is stalled for one night. Actually, they won two in a row against some pretty good opponents, those being the Golden State Warriors and the aforementioned world champion Boston Celtics. But thank you very much for joining me in Talk Live on IG and YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Sponsored by Duntalk, DUNTALK.com, although I'm not wearing any Duntalk tonight for the aforementioned reason of the Arsenal win. But anyways, we are back here tonight, and we are celebrating tonight. Tonight is a celebration, ladies and gentlemen. It's a celebration! As the greatest comedian in the world, David Chappelle, in my opinion, would have said on his world-famous sketch regarding Rick James. It's a celebration. Look it up. It's absolutely classic comedy. All right. Yes, it is a celebration because not only are we celebrating wins, we're celebrating the ousting of Justin Trudeau. Not Pierre. He is not his father. Believe me, he is not his father. His father was way smarter and way more important to the country than his kid was. But anyways, it is over. The reign of tyranny, terror and tyranny is over here in Canada, and that is Justin Trudeau has finally resigned after much, and I do mean much, much cajoling by his party himself, issuing basically ganging up on him and imploring him to leave. Amidst I think 6 or 7 resignations, as we'll find out tonight, and also, his just being bad for the party. His his approval ratings were in the tank, literally, and the country couldn't stand him anymore after blunder after blunder, scandal after scandal, which we will feature here tonight on Talk Live, as we have entitled. Trudeau is true gone. Goodbye, PM Blackface. Yes, indeed. And in that title, one of his sins has been displayed, and that is his penchant, should I say, his fetish with blackface, ladies and gentlemen. But let's get into it right now tonight on Talk Live. Thank you very much for joining me. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Let's get into this, people. Yes, this has been long awaiting. Shout out to my man. Alphonse from Fitness 365. He is the one who basically inspired this night. I was not going to feature it tonight because it was long in doing, but you know what? I thought, let me give it a break. Let me go a change of pace tonight. We go the politics route. Tomorrow, as has been the shocker, not shock, but has been the bombshell of the day, Drake is now filed a defamation lawsuit against Kendrick Lamar. So we're going to get into that tomorrow on Talk Live. Yes, indeed. Drake is going one step beyond. I saw him at the Raptor game on, I believe, Monday night against Golden State. Yes, he's going public, which was the first thing I told him not to do. And the second thing I told him not to do was to issue any more suits against anyone involved in the They Not Like Us controversy. But Drake has gone against both of those ideas anyway. So we're going to study that. I have some material in the pile in regards to Drake's new lawsuit against Kendrick Lamar et al. So do stay tuned for that tomorrow night on Talk Live. Thank you very much, Lana, for joining me. So let's get into it. Against Justin Trudeau, a.k.a. PM Blackface, let's get into the browser here. Yes, indeed. And I am going to, yes, break. Yeah, yes, indeed. That's for tomorrow's show. But let's get into tonight's show, and that is Justin Trudeau's resignation. It came as a bit of a shock, but not really a shock because, well, Justin Trudeau was a wildly unpopular prime minister when it all was said and done. Um, I think his approval rating was just above 20%. People were imploring him to leave. Scandal after scandal after scandal has gone against him, which we will talk tonight about on Talk Live, as we have featured up here. And he basically has relegated his party to uh, official opposition / third party status going forward. Yes, anybody who's running for this party now into the next federal election, next general election, believe me, they're not winning any election at all. And that can be thanks to this man right here, Justin Trudeau. So let's get into it tonight on Talk Live. Justin Trudeau resigns as scandal hit decade as Canada's Prime Minister comes to an end. Yes, indeed. He has been our Prime Minister for 9 years. Can you believe it? 9 years. He was it was darn near 10 years, but it's nine and a bit. It was, I believe, in July 2015 when he came to power, and rode in on a wave of optimism and belief, and basically, uh, well, nepotism, quite simply. Well, I wouldn't say nepotism, just name, identity, politics. As Trudeau is a huge name in politics here in Canada, and he became, I think, the first father and son prime minister duo in this country's history. And so let's get into this right here as we get into the scandal hit decade. So right now we're going to let everybody know of the scandals that Mr. Trudeau was involved with over the last 10 years to begin with, and how we got here in the first place to the point where, well, nobody wants to be prime minister anymore, and the Liberals are pretty much Liberal Party, the party he represents, are pretty much relegated to opposition / third party status in this country. So let's get into this right now. Thank you very much for joining me on Talk Live at IG, YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Let's get into it.
Nationwide, competitive process.
Justin Trudeau, Canada's charismatic yet often controversial prime minister, has resigned as party leader after nearly a decade in power. He announced his decision on Monday ahead of a key Liberal Party caucus meeting later this week. Trudeau's resignation now brings an end to a political era that began in 2013 when he became leader of the Liberal Party. It would also be a precursor to Trudeau stepping down as Canada's prime minister. Under his leadership, the Liberals won 3 consecutive elections in 2015, 2019, and 2021. But
here's the thing about Justin Trudeau. Justin Trudeau is he's a people pleaser. I heard it once of a man. You'll see it tonight. He's one who will try to do anything and everything to try to gain the spotlight or to gain one's approval. He's not one. He's not a man of real scruples, to be fair, unless his job is on the line. But yeah, he's always out there aiming to please, including doing these push-ups where he's doing a cringeworthy mic drop. Lord knows, and he just doesn't know where to. He doesn't know the line between where style ends and cringeworthiness begins. But let's continue.
His tenure has been overshadowed by a string of scandals and growing discontent within his party and the public. One of the most damaging scandals occurred in 2019 when photos emerged of Trudeau wearing brownface at a party in 2001 while he was a private school teacher. The images, along with 2 other instances of him in blackface, caused outrage and called into question his progressive image as a champion of diversity.
Here's the thing about Justin Trudeau, and this is why I feature this to begin with. I always refer to Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, as PM Blackface. And here is one of those instances where the prime minister just couldn't run away from a darkened skinned makeup kit and making himself into the butt of a racist slash just simply a racist slash cultural xenophobic joke, and it made him so tone deaf as to the reasons why he did this in the first place, because he saw this as being nothing wrong. This is from a man who went to the best schools. This is from a man who became a teacher himself, and he rose to prominence as was previously mentioned, on a wave of woke ideas and multiculturalism and being a champion of justice and a non-racist society. But again, he was completely tone deaf here, as you can see clearly that PM Blackface was always aiming to please, always trying to stretch the boundaries of decency, and as you can see here in his costume, I think he was trying to be Aladdin in this sequence. This is a costume party in which he had the Aladdin costume on, and again offended many a Middle Eastern slash Indian individual, as will be seen later on tonight. So that's why I call him PM Blackface, because he just doesn't know the line between decency and racist slash xenophobic acts, quite simply. Let's continue.
Despite public apologies, the controversy left a lasting mark on his reputation, particularly among minority communities. Trudeau's leadership was also criticized during his 2018 trip to India, when he and his family faced backlash for their elaborate displays of traditional Indian clothing. Critics accused him of cultural appropriation and argued that the outfits turned the visit into a political spectacle, further fueling claims that Trudeau was out of touch with ordinary Canadians.
Yeah, Trudeau was, again, very, very tone deaf once more in that trip to India, in which pretty much most, if not all, of his garb was Indian dress, and instead of being a statesman, he became a laughable subject, a butt of a joke, and totally tone deaf with regards to the Indian population and their prime minister, and it's it lacks tact. It lacks any sort of respect for the Indian people, and again, he was vilified for said gestures, and rightly so. Let's continue.
In 2018, allegations of inappropriate conduct resurfaced when a journalist accused Trudeau of groping her at a 2000 event in British Columbia. Although Trudeau apologized at the time, he later defended himself by claiming he did not perceive the interaction as inappropriate. The incident, referred to as Gropegate, reignited security over his behavior and added to the list of controversies surrounding his leadership.
Gropegate, people. Gropegate. The man could not resist a bit of copping a feel on one's, meaty exterior. And Mr. Trudeau is, listen, he's not a bad-looking man, but again, he sometimes took it upon himself to let ladies know that he cared. He really did care. He cared about their buttocks and how they would get through the day, and making sure that they were given adequate massages, even if the lady never really never really wanted it in any way, shape, or form. So again, another controversy on the path. But again, this is normal fare in terms of politics. I mean, name me a politician who has not been involved in any sort of Gropegate or sexual misconduct, and I'll I'll see that you are naive about politics, quite simply. And so, listen, uh, n- not his finest and shining hour. Again, uh, women are entitled to their own, space and hegemony. And so, yeah, another blight, blight on the Trudeau copybook. Let's continue.
In 2016, Trudeau faced backlash after physically elbowing NDP MP Ruth Ellen Brosseau and allegedly manhandling opposition whip Gord Brown in the House of Commons during a heated debate. The altercation shocked many Canadians, leading to accusations of physical intimidation. While Trudeau quickly apologized, the incident added to perceptions of increasingly erratic leadership. Foreign interference.
Again, Trudeau, just can't keep a handle on his emotions. But again, this is usual fare for any politician. But still, conduct unbecoming of a prime minister. Quite simply, are we making light of sexual assault? Asked Lana BK. No, we are not making light of assault. What we are acknowledging is the fact that this is common. This is way too common, and something that should not be stood for in the slightest. So again, how many? Again, I'm bringing to light how many sexual misconducts are out there. Even though it is frowned upon, it is still done to this day. So again, we are indeed not making light of SA in the slightest. Let it be said once more. Let's continue.
Also clouded Trudeau's time in office. In 2019, he accused China of attempting to meddle in Canada's elections by supporting certain candidates and deploying operatives to influence policy. Beijing denied the allegations, but the controversy raised questions about Canada's electoral security and Trudeau's ability to respond to international challenges.
I do remember, yes, Mr. Trudeau was involved in the Huawei scandal, in which one of Huawei's executives was, kept in custody and on house arrest here in Canada as they investigated a scandal regarding, wiretapping of the tapping and security misconduct with regards to the Canadian government and Canadian private affairs and private information. And that lasted for, I would say, a good year and a half, in which tensions are still very, very, very tense with regards to China and Canada. And I don't think we're out of the woods yet in that department. Yes, do look up the Huawei scandal between the Canadian and the Chinese governments, and it is does not make for good reading at all. Let's continue.
Trudeau also faced significant backlash during the 2022 Freedom Convoy protests, where truckers and their supporters opposed vaccine mandates and broader pandemic restrictions. Ottawa became gridlocked for weeks, and while Trudeau dismissed the protesters as a small fringe minority, the protests gained widespread attention and support, further polarizing Canadians.
Yes, let us not forget one of the biggest scandals that Trudeau was involved with, and that is the vaccination scandal, and what became world famous, the blockade and the convoy that happened upon Ottawa in 2022. Yes, indeed, in which hundreds were arrested, many are still being prosecuted to this day, and were held to fines, if not jail time, because of their disruption of the of traffic and of parliamentary business. Sorry about that. Need to get this in me. Sorry about that. That's better. Went down the wrong way, as they say. Went down the wrong way. So, yes, this is a highly controversial, highly scandalous affair because The one thing that Trudeau was a huge advocate of was vaccinations, and punishing any and all of those who did not receive vaccinations during the times of COVID. Now I know some people are health medical officials, doctors, nurses, anybody in the medical profession really did feel the brunt of the mandate of vaccinations, many losing their jobs, careers, as a result of them going against any sort of vaccination mandate. And that includes many Canadians who were forced to either take vaccinations or having to resign from their job because, again, it was seen. It's allegedly seen as a scandal in which, Big Pharma forced vaccinations on the public, asking them to take the vaccination for COVID, which were again never proved to cure or to alleviate any COVID symptoms. But again, they were highly influenced. These drug companies highly influence governments around the world to push for these vaccinations to happen, including here in Canada, and for, I'm sure, a fee that has yet to be disclosed. But again, many people's lives have been disrupted. Many people's lives have been changed forever. And again, Mr. Trudeau pissed off a segment of our public to the point of blockading the route towards the Parliament buildings here. Here as seen in 2022, and Trudeau has received a huge segment of the population who condemns him to this day because of this mandate, and I think it's one of his biggest scandals, his biggest controversies to this day. And a lot of people, including myself, do take a dim view of the soon-to-be ex-prime minister because of this scandal that rocked the nation and the world, quite simply. Let's continue.
Trudeau's decision to step aside comes amid mounting pressure from within his own party, fueled by dismal poll numbers and a growing sense that the Liberals face an uphill battle in the next federal election. The resignation of his longtime ally and former Deputy Prime Minister Chrystia Freeland last month also added to the leadership crisis. Trudeau's resignation will now mark the end of a tumultuous decade in Canadian politics. His departure would leave the Liberal Party searching for new leadership at a critical moment, with Canadians eager for change and the opposition Conservatives gaining significant momentum in the polls.
Yes, indeed. As was mentioned, and we will mention again here, has been previously mentioned, was mentioned here, and will be mentioned again later on in the show. There were mass resignations on the part of his his inner circle with regards to his ministers, and it never is a good sign when you see, I think, about 6 resignations within the matter of a year with the Prime Minister, showing that there is not wide consensus with regards to keeping him in office. And I think that pressure of those resignations and the calls of his own party to step down finally allowed for this to happen. Let's continue.
I'll wait. So I thought it might be fun for us to do this again. I intend to resign as party leader, as Prime Minister, after the party selects its next leader through a robust, nationwide, competitive process. Last night, I asked the President of the Liberal Party to begin that process. This country deserves a real choice in the next election, and it has become clear to me that if I'm having to fight internal battles, I cannot be the best option in that election.
Finally, indeed, he got the message. Many of his party had disapproved of his leadership, Many of his inner circle, in terms of his cabinet, had left him as prime minister, has left him in their posts, and so the writing was on the wall. Clearly, Trudeau was a disavowed and truly unpopular prime minister by this point. He had been in office for 9 years, and they wanted him to go. They wanted him out of there. So as of last week, he decided to resign. He decided to resign his post as prime minister effectively after the next general election, which should be as of this year. So it's a sad end to was once a promising and woke and new and was once touted, faithful and brilliant choice as prime minister. However, too many scandals, too much. He'd been in office for way too long, and people just needed to change. And his approval ratings showed it. His party let him know, and he decided to, do the right thing and resign his post effectively after the next general election. So he will stay in as prime minister until that time, so we have another few months to deal with him until Justin finally fades into history as indeed one of the most disliked prime ministers in modern history. Let's continue.
Nous traversons vraiment un moment critique dans le monde. As you all know, I am a fighter, and I am not someone who backs away from a fight, particularly when a fight is as important as this one is. But I have always been driven by my love for Canada, by my desire to serve Canadians, and by what is in the best interest of Canadians. And Canadians deserve a real choice in the next election. And it has become obvious to me with the internal battles that I cannot be the one to carry the Liberal standard into the next election. Canadians deserve a real choice in the next election. And it has become obvious to me. If I have one regret, particularly as we approach this election, well, there are probably many regrets that I will think of. But I do wish that we'd been able to change the way we elect our governments in this country so that people could simply choose a second choice or a third choice on the same ballot, so that parties would spend more time trying to be people's second or third choices, and people would have been looking for things they have in common instead of trying to polarize and divide Canadians against each other. I think in this...
Quite simply, what he's referring to is the fact that he has survived in a minority government. So therefore, he has asked for the support of one of the parties, that being the New Democrat Party, the NDP, for at least half of his prime ministership. So basically, he received a vote, as will be alluded to later in the show. He received the backing of the New Democrat Party in any of his endeavors, unless they saw it as so egregious that they would call for a non-confidence vote and therefore a new election in due course. So again, Justin Trudeau has had to, carry the load as prime minister with the help of another party. He never, I think only once did he receive a true majority vote from the public. I think that's when he came in as prime minister himself. Maybe one more election after that. But I would say for at least half of the time he was prime minister, he survived within a minority government, as will be alluded to here today. So again, he needed help in order to stay as prime minister. Let's continue. Let's finish this up.
Time figuring out how to pull together and find common ground remains something that is really important for democracies, but I could not change unilaterally without support of other parties. our electoral system, that wouldn't have been responsible.
And there it is, ladies and gentlemen. Justin Trudeau has resigned as Prime Minister, and as he alluded to right there, he could not really rule over the country unless, as Prime Minister, unless he had help from other parties. And that is something that, is pretty much a unique for this unique to parliamentary politics and unique to Canada. Period. Not a lot of prime ministers serve as prime minister without minority help for any length of time. Quite simply, especially after one's first term, they do need help because the popularity of said prime minister usually wanes after the first 4 to 5 years of them being prime ministership. So again, it is very unique to Canada and the parliamentary system to have a prime minister run the country through minority mandate. All right, so let's continue here. Thank you very much to the Sun magazine. Okay, the Sun is a UK newspaper. If you did not know, now not exactly the top of the shelf in terms of and being the most reputable newspapers, but again, I think they were very accurate in their reporting here, and we thank the Sun for this video. So let's go and continue with the top 10 cringiest Justin Trudeau moments. Yes, indeed. Some of them have already been mentioned, but a few of them have not. So we're going to go with those top 10 moments through Mojo. Yes, indeed. We are going to remind you why indeed this man is being ousted as prime minister. This is not a. You see the clean cut, relatively good looking man, 6 feet and taller. He's abided by the rule of six, and so it does carry sway with many a female voter. However, a lot of mistakes were made during his time, as it was alluded to in his resignation speech. But just checking to see if anything's available out there or any comments. But we are good to go. But yes, Justin Trudeau had further cringeworthy moments. So again, we're just gonna go with this Mojo video. Shout out to Mojo doing wonderful things YouTube streams to the tune of 25.6 million subscribers. So again, a highly successful platform and segment of said platform. So again, it's let's get into top 10 cringiest Justin Trudeau moments. Let's continue.
Blackface since 2001?
I have been very forthright with Canadians on this issue, and I will continue to be.
Welcome to Watch Mojo, and today we're counting down our picks for the times that Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau didn't quite make us want to stand on guard for thee.
Maternal love is the love that's going to change the future of mankind. So we'd like you to...
we like to say people kind, not necessarily mankind.
Number 10, speaking moistly.
If people want to wear a mask, that is okay. It protects others more than it protects you, because it prevents you from breathing or speaking moistly on them. Oh, what a terrible image.
Look, you can't argue that Prime Minister Trudeau had good intentions behind this now iconic gaffe. Speaking to the press on April 7th, 2020, shortly into the early days of the COVID-19 pandemic, Trudeau uttered a turn of phrase that instantly became the stuff of Canadian pop culture legend.
I'm like, oh, I've been there when you're trying to find the word, and then the wrong one's coming.
Yeah, it's coming.
But
there's nothing else going to replace it, so you just got to go with what's on deck.
And one of the worst words in the English language is coming out of my mouth, and he knew it.
Hashtag speaking moistly. I'm guessing that trended.
Listen.
Yes, indeed. The speaking moistly comment. I forgot about this, quite simply, that Justin Trudeau had even said that. But again, Justin Trudeau was... sometimes, as can be had by many a politician, many a head of state, a bit of a deer in the headlights moment, and that was indeed one of his finest deer in the headlight moment hours. where he was asking, where he was letting everybody know that wearing a mask during the pandemic would prevent anyone from speaking moistly on you. And again, take that as you will, ladies and gentlemen, because some people would take that the right way, some people would take that the wrong way. But again, it wouldn't surprise me that they did take it the wrong way. Let's continue.
In ways that Canadians could keep themselves safe from the coronavirus, the Prime Minister suggested practicing social distancing, regularly washing one's hands, and avoiding, quote, speaking moistly.
And taking those vaccines. Remember, he was big time into those. Let's continue.
Even Trudeau himself seemed aghast at his choice of words, and commentators and media personalities alike had some fun with his remarks during a particularly dark time. Trudeau was even remixed by Edmonton-based producer Brock Tyler, leading to a viral sensation.
What prevents you from speaking moistly? Speaking moistly.
Number 9, the 20-second pause.
Hi, Prime Minister Tom Perry, CBC. You've been reluctant to comment on the words and actions of the U.S. president, but we do have Donald Trump now calling for military action against protesters. We saw protesters tear gas yesterday to make way for a presidential photo op. I'd like to ask you what you think about that, and if you don't want to comment, what message do you think you're sending?
The 2020 murder of George Floyd, an unarmed black man, by police officers in Minneapolis ignited a wave of tension, outrage, and an outpouring of global reactions. Within the United States, Floyd's killing provoked a summer's worth of protests that sometimes grew violent and destructive. Then President Donald J. Trump, when asked for his thoughts on the protests, suggested that the military be deployed to quell them.
Yes, it's judging by the silence, Justin Trudeau and Donald Trump were never really on great terms, as much as he was with Barack Obama, with whom he shares a that special relationship. No homo, no diddy. Where they were truly they truly had a valued friendship. Justin Trudeau and Donald Trump aren't really the best of friends, quite simply. Even though they do share a border, it's a very civil sort of relationship. There is no warmth within it, and again, with Justin Trudeau's woke character and his disapproval of Donald Trump on the whole, this cringeworthy outburst came to pass. Let's continue. Which I can't really blame him for myself.
Trudeau, who'd already garnered a reputation for hemming and hawing, struggled to articulate a response to a question about Trump's suggestion. For 21 long, uncomfortable seconds, Trudeau seemed to be booting up an answer that wouldn't come. By the time he finally spoke, his reply was seen as evasive and underwhelming.
We all watch in horror and consternation what's going on in the United States. It is a time to pull people together, but it is a time to listen. It is a time to learn what injustices continue despite progress.
Number 8, forgetting Alberta.
We may live in British Columbia, Yukon, the Northwest Territories, Saskatchewan, Manitoba, Nunavut, Ontario, Quebec, New Brunswick, Prince Edward Island.
Even despite numerous concessions to them during his tenure as Prime Minister, Trudeau was largely seen as an enemy of the Canadian oil and gas sector. This made him particularly unpopular in western provinces like Alberta and Saskatchewan. Trudeau was viewed as having little sympathy for workers whose jobs were threatened by measures to focus on renewable energy.
Well, here's the thing about Justin Trudeau. He's always an advocate for environmental causes and initiatives. and you know what? Kudos to him for standing on said platform, because again, it is one of the few things that I agree with Justin Trudeau on his environmental stance. And so he was an enemy to oil and gas industry and fracking and such. You know, which makes it ironic that he advocated for the cross Canada, Trans Canada pipeline that would have been an environmental disaster in the first place. But again, so it's a bit ironic that he had this disapproval of the oil and gas industry in the United States. So again, it's really it is really cringeworthy that Justin had to go this route to forget Alberta in his rousing speech for Canada's 150th birthday. But I really think it's just more of a guffaw than any sort of slight against the province of Alberta. Period. Let's continue.
We embrace that diversity while knowing in our hearts that we are all Canadians.
As such, Trudeau's 2017 Canada Day address, which also marked Canada's 150th anniversary, proved wince-worthy when he forgot to mention Alberta while reading off the names of Canada's 10 provinces and 3 territories. Trudeau apologized for the slip-up on Twitter, now X, saying, quote, "Got too excited somewhere over the Rockies. Sorry, Alberta. I love you. Happy Canada Day."
Except for you, Alberta.
Two questions. One, is it an honest mistake? Because he read them
100%.
out of order. You know, he may have forgotten. But I also noticed watching all of the ceremonies on Saturday that he had a teleprompter. So
he did.
Could it have been the person who wrote the script, if it was prompted, that they forgot to write Alberta into a script?
Number 7, because it's 2015.
It's an incredible pleasure for me to be here today before you to present to Canada a cabinet that looks like Canada.
This Trudeau moment may have sounded good at the time, but has since come to stand as a symbol of the all-talk, no-action critiques that hounded him into the tail end of his decade-long ministership. As noted by the British newspaper The Telegraph at the time in November 2015, quote, "He's picked 15 men and 15 women, the first gender-balanced ministerial team in the country's history," end quote.
I understand one of the priorities for you was to have a cabinet that was gender balanced. Why was that so important to you?
Because it's 2015.
When asked why this was important to him, Trudeau simply responded, "Because it's 2015. While it's hard to argue against greater gender parity in politics, Trudeau's quote now comes across as glib, performative, and even arrogant, especially when one considers the systemic change that failed to materialize over the course of his tenure.
Yes, indeed. Mr. Trudeau has not really got it right with regards to many of his cabinet making choices simply because of simply not based on competence, but simply on filling quotas and being woke. Now again, kudos to him for bringing together a cabinet that was balanced, gender balanced between men and women, 15 male ministers and 15 female ministers, very diverse in terms of, pretty diverse in terms of minorities being involved in said cabinet, but it was widely panned for its lack of action and low standard of low standard of performance, quite simply. And again, his as I said, glib comment of it's 2015 really leaned into the fact that Justin Trudeau was a man who tried to do things in order to make people happy, in order to, instead of holding standards with regards to competence and quite simply being, based on one's performative virtues, quite simply. And Justin was always trying to aim to please, quite simply, and he did so right off the bat with this here cabinet that he brought together with regards to his election into power as prime minister. Let's continue.
Canadians elected extraordinary members of parliament from across the country, and I am glad to have been able to highlight a few of them in this cabinet here with me today.
Number 6, his Swiftie moment. The haters gonna hate indeed. Taylor Swift's Eras Tour was undeniably an unprecedented cultural phenomenon, becoming both the highest-grossing tour of all time and the first to gross over $1 billion. So with that in mind, it was more than a little understandable that Canadian Swifties were shattered when Swift initially announced her tour dates and that the true North Strong and Free was nowhere to be found.
How could you do this? You really do this.
Trudeau advocated for Swifties, urging the singer-songwriter to reconsider. Eventually, Swift announced a 6-night residency at Toronto's Rogers Centre and a 3-night stint at BC Place in Vancouver. Trudeau didn't go unrecognized for his efforts. He was caught dancing his heart out at Swift's penultimate Toronto show. Truly, he is all of our dorky dads. Number 5.
Oh my God! Yeah, less said about that, the better. Literally, he didn't have to do that. Swift didn't have to come to this country. Sorry, all the Swifties out there, but well, in my estimation, her music isn't that great. Anyways, continue.
His infamous party trick. Thinking about inviting Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, to your next house party? After seeing this resurfaced interview clip, you may want to reconsider, or not. Interviewed by La Presse, a French-language Montreal newspaper, Trudeau reveals how he connects with others at social events. Without hesitation, the then-future Prime Minister demonstrates the best way to reach across the aisle, which is, of course, to toss yourself down a flight of stairs as a gag. While we don't recommend trying this out at home, such tumbling is best left to professionals. We wonder whether the Prime Minister could offer lessons once he's out of office. Number 4.
Yes, as I said to you about Justin Trudeau, Justin will do anything and everything to put a smile on one's face or to look, well, to gain one's approval, quite simply. He, including throwing himself down a set of stairs. I told you this. This is one of his, party gags. Let's continue.
Bohemian Rhapsody.
Okay, we're going to leave that there. I'm not going any further into that. Let's continue with the India trip.
Supposed to strengthen ties, but it was, by all accounts, a disaster. Now, it's just not me saying that. A Washington Post headline actually read, Trudeau's India trip is a total disaster. Critics allege that the trip was more of an extended vacation since Trudeau met with almost no Indian government officials, but he did find time to take a few pictures.
What was proposed as an 8-day diplomatic mission to highlight the strong ties between Canada and India ended as a complete public relations nightmare for the Canadian government. Oh, and for Prime Minister Trudeau.
Some people felt he overdid it on the traditional Indian dress, and by some people, I mean everyone. For example, this is how Stephen Harper and Jean Chrétien dressed when they visited India. Justin, he went for a more on-the-nose approach.
Not only did the two world powers clash over the Prime Minister's itinerary, as well as the unusual length of his stay in India, but Trudeau's dancing once again proved to be a sore point. Clips of Trudeau performing Bhangra, a popular style of Indian folk dancing, were subject to online jeers and mocking, with some accusing him of cultural appropriation. Hey, at least he seems really eager.
At least he didn't do any embarrassing dancing. At this point, you think...
Yeah, Justin will do anything and everything to try to appease his audience here again. But again, what do I expect from PM Blackface? Yeah. Let's continue.
Think it couldn't get any worse. Well, you'd be wrong. It was revealed that a Liberal MP had invited a convicted attempted murderer to a reception in India.
Number 2, people kind.
Unfortunately, in Canada, our volunteering as a charitable religious organization is extremely difficult. Extremely.
A 2018 town hall saw the Prime Minister taking a long, convoluted question from an attendee who didn't know she was making history when she used the word mankind. Trudeau responded by seemingly correcting her, suggesting that people-kind was more inclusive.
It can also be changed because maternal love is the love that's going to change the future of mankind. So we'd like you to...
we like to say people kind, not necessarily mankind. It's more inclusive.
There we go, exactly.
The subsequent online response saw the Liberal Party leader torn to shreds for what sounded like virtue signaling and mansplaining.
Seriously. People kind? Really? Wokeism on steroids, anyone?
Neil Dale, Washington correspondent for the Toronto Star newspaper, argued that the critiques were in bad faith and that, quote, he was lightly ribbing a woman who was rambling about the power of women, God the Mother, and how the world needs womanly love.
That's why, in actuality, we cannot do free volunteering to help our neighbors in need as we truly desire. So that's why we came here today to ask you to also look into the policies that religious charitable organizations have in our legislation.
Before we continue, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to get notified about our latest videos.
Of Trudeau wearing what appears to be blackface. It is the fourth similar image now to have come to light in the past 24 hours.
Even if you don't follow Canadian politics, chances are you still somehow heard about this unbelievably embarrassing, entirely avoidable scandal on Justin Trudeau's part. September 2019 found Trudeau requesting then-Governor-General Julie Bayet to dissolve Parliament and to thus trigger a federal election. It didn't take long for the Prime Minister's most damning scandal to date to come to light.
Last night, in speaking to reporters, Trudeau was asked directly whether there were any other incidents. He'd already apologized for one when he was a high school teacher. Under questioning from reporters, though, notably our David Cochrane, he revealed a second when he was a high school student. But when he was asked if there were any other incidents of his wearing black or brown face, Trudeau did not directly say.
Shortly after the election was called, pictures appeared online and in Time magazine of Trudeau donning blackface and brownface. Yes, that's more than once. While the scandal didn't seem to affect the Liberals' performance in that election, Trudeau's reputation as a multicultural crusader took a significant, lasting hit.
Justin Trudeau, in brown and blackface, we've seen a number of examples. Do you consider it to be racist?
Yeah, it's racist beyond any doubt. Ask people of color growing up across this country, and they'll share with you why it's offensive. Pulling from my own personal experience as a Sikh Punjabi kid growing up in Brampton, we used to see incidents of folks knocking turbans off.
Which Trudeau moment?
There it is, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, the final and the most ultimately cringeworthy segment of Pierre Justin. Oh, well, it's Pierre Justin. I was saying that. He is not his father. Justin Trudeau's life is the fact that he was, he is always PM Blackface to me. Always. Always. As he had so eloquently done on 4 occasions. Not once, not twice, not 3 times, 4 times. Now, this is from a very well-educated man who had gone to the best of schools, knowing right from wrong, and yet doing it anyway. Now, many people have tried to dissuade me from referring to his plea in blackface, but I have always referred to him as such because a head of state should know right from wrong in those instances. And for him to do it not only in his high school years, but that then going into his teaching profession, something is really, really depraved in this man's head to some further extent. But again, he only aims to please by doing that. But he doesn't. He can't really read a room, Justin. That's why he's caught in all these cringe-worthy events. So thank you very much to Mojo TV for this look back into some of the cringiest moments in Justin Trudeau's prime ministership. And well, you could subscribe to watch Mojo TV at your leisure, doing humongous things in his YouTube streets. But do you really need to? I don't know. Again, I leave that to you. But we come to one of the biggest scandals of all, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, the weed charity scandal. That the Prime Minister would love to forget, but I won't. Simply because not only was he involved, but his family as well. As was seen here in this video from the Fifth Estate. The Fifth Estate, if you did not know, here in Canada, is an investigative journalist show that has been running for 50 years here. Highly, highly popular show here in Canada. And shout out to the Fifth Estate for this very, very in-depth investigation into the Weed Charity. Now, the Weed Charity, if you did not know, was a charity that would come to help the least fortunate, and led by this gentleman here, Mr. I think it's let's see here, Mr. Umlaver. Wait a second. Let me just check this out. Kielburger. Yes, that's right. That's his brother, Mark Kielburger, but it is led in part by, let me just get this here, Mr. Here we go. Yes, Craig Kielburger. Craig Kielburger and Justin Kielburger, the brother duo that led this Weed Charity that was an international sensation during the late noughties. I mean, not late noughties, late 20-teens, and they landed themselves into a bit of hot water with regards to purporting certain charitable endeavors and initiatives without justification, quite simply. Like they would build wells that never tapped into any water, or helped hospitals that they alleged aid to hospitals that never received the help, or soup kitchens that weren't really soup kitchens at all. So a lot of the money, as you can hear, really fell into the hands of the administration of the Weed Charity, including the Kielburgers themselves. But again, for their love of fame and love of notoriety, they fell into cahoots with the Prime Minister Justin Trudeau himself. To the point of, let's just get here in the 38th minute. Yes, right around here. In which they explain their interaction with Justin Trudeau himself. Now, Justin Trudeau really backed this charity, put his to such an extent that he traveled the world with the charity, appearing at events and concerts in which many a celebrity, including the likes of Idris Elba and Lewis Hamilton and et al. Would participate in order to advocate for a charity that would be a force for the non-fortunate, for the less fortunate and the marginalized. And we will further explain that later on into hour 2 of this show. So do stay with us as we talk about the We Charity and what happens next to Justin Trudeau. And we'll continue here on Talk Live. Thank you very much for joining me on Talk Live on IG, YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Into hour 2 of our look into Justin Trudeau and his final goodbye and good riddance, quite simply. So we're gonna just switch on this. We're just gonna switch on this. Here we go. We're gonna switch on this and bring back IG. So bear with me one moment as they are looking out for me in way, shape, or form. But anyways, yes, we're back here on IG for hour 2 of goodbye, Mr. PM Trudeau, or should I say PM Blackface? Yes, well, yes indeed. And thank you very much for joining me. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. So we're just getting into the real reason why Justin Trudeau was involved in this scandal regarding the We Charity, in which Justin Trudeau had participated in. He didn't prorogue himself. He didn't recuse himself from meetings regarding the We Charity and its backing by the Canadian federal government, to the point where, well, let's just let this speak for itself. The price we paid, an investigation into the We Charity rise and fall from grace, the Fifth Estate. And this has happened about 3 years ago, when at the height of the We Charity scandal. And let's just find the root of the issue right here in this 5-minute segment. So do bear with me. Thank you very much for joining me on Talk Live.
Children's charity's name as a political football. That instead, let's properly call it what it is. And this was a political issue. This was a political issue that had a charity as roadkill, as collateral damage.
The Kielburgers insist they are the victims of the We scandal. Yet there was something they did to themselves, a self-inflicted wound that damaged a brand they'd been building for 25 years. CBC News asked the We organization if any members of the Trudeau family were paid for their expenses or provide any other honoraria or appearance fees related to their participation in these activities for your organization. The response: the charity has never paid an honorarium to these individuals for their involvement in these programs and events. 2 weeks went by with that denial on the record. And then Canada Land was leaked this invoice, paid to Margaret Trudeau by the We charity Free the Children for $7,500. The same day Justin Trudeau and Sophie Gregoire were on the stage at the We Day UN in New York.
The We organization claimed that they had never paid the Trudeaus anything, and one of our sources sent us proof to the contrary. So what do when you have the smoking gun? You report it.
Under pressure, the We organization now admitted Margaret Trudeau spoke at some 28 events and that she was paid $180,000 in speaking fees and another $164,000 in expenses. Alexandra's Sasha Trudeau had been paid $36,000 for 9 We events. And all of this came as news even to their own board of directors.
So now you know why the We Charity scandal is so widespread. And well, I wouldn't say widespread, is so scandalous really. And that is the Prime Minister's own family were wetting their beak at the charity's trough. Yes, their family for their appearances were paid appearance fees by the charity itself. And in exchange, the We Charity was backed by the Canadian government, in which the Prime Minister participated in many of the meetings that pushed for the advocacy of the We Charity. So he didn't recuse himself, which is a huge conflict of interest. So that is why this weed charity is something that the Canadian government would like to, really sweep under the rug, because Justin had, pushed for his family to be paid by the charity for his advocacy for the charity. A bit of insider trading here, as it were. A bit of corruptive activities, to say the least. So, he paid. His mother was paid. I believe his wife was paid. I believe Justin was paid. Well, let's go into this a little further. This is a 5-minute clip, but very, very, very evocative, to say the least. Let's continue.
You didn't tell your board members that you had paid Margaret Trudeau to speak or to appear at your wee days or the meet and greets.
It was actually a question that we had been posed by a specific board member who asked, did we pay talent for Wee Day?
Mm-hmm.
We don't pay. In fact, we've never paid for people to come and speak on the Wee Day stage. We've never had to.
Why did you pay Margaret Trudeau?
Oh, we didn't have to on the Wee Day stage. Specifically, though, what we did need her help for is other events. For example, friend raisers or fundraisers, or events that we did for educators or others in the community that we needed a speaker, just like a university lecture series. But I understand that from an optics point of view, I get it. I do. And I understand why we did not do a good enough job of explaining that. And I own that.
Did you start?
So therefore, just because she wasn't paid, allegedly not paid for the We charity appearance, there are other appearances for which she was paid. The Prime Minister's mother was paid in total of $300,000 for appearances at other charities in order to promote the cause itself. And again, board members did not know this, but again, the Kielburgers did. So this was an inside agreement between the Prime Minister and the heads of this charity that they would be given, certain honorariums, certain fees for their appearance, which is the height of corruptive activities, the height of it. But again, this was not to come to light, my people. Remember, this was a very surreptitious endeavor, to say the least. But it soon came to light, and again, We Charity had to own it. And let's find out about their denouement as a result.
Putting together all the pieces and realize how bad this looked, that you did have what appeared to be an inside cozy relationship with the Liberal government.
I'll acknowledge that I and Mark, we were politically blind how that would be seen. Full acknowledgement of it.
For a kid so intelligent, believe me, this is not a, I wouldn't say a kid. This is a man now. For a man so intelligent as to not see the corruptive element in this endeavor is, not to be believed, quite simply, and quite simply shocking. Quite simply shocking. He knew what the implications meant. In order to get government backing of his charity and therefore worldwide international acclaim for his charity, little quid pro quo, little brown bagging had to be the result. And so for him to be so evasive from the truth is quite simply baffling, if not laughable. Let's continue.
Because it was spread over a decade. You've been at this since you're 12 years old. You have traveled the world. You've met with political leaders, with notables, and you're saying at this point, I'm naive. I don't realize the fact that we've got Sophie Gregoire Trudeau doing a podcast for us, that we've got Margaret Trudeau on our stage, we've had Sacha Trudeau on our stage, we've had Justin Trudeau on our stage since 2007. You don't believe that a common person will look at this and think, well, they're a little cozy. There's something going on here.
It's very fair for someone to say that there is a relationship.
Really? Very fair for someone to say there's a relationship? It's very fair to say that there is there's a bit of activity in the background, you know what I mean, in terms of legal tender. In terms of, in terms of, in terms of payment, in terms of, a little stipend for one's appearance at these occasions, these 28 occasions. So basically, it's giving the Trudeaus a job. The charity has given the Trudeaus a job. The wife, the mother, the brother, all given jobs through the activity of the Prime Minister and the charity themselves. In other words, the height of Canadian corruption. Let's continue.
Well, Mark, your point is valid because the optics weren't great. We understand that, but please also realize that we were working with politicians of all stripes, of all parties, in every region of this country, and frankly,
and their involvement all came through the Prime Minister. Believe me, their doors wouldn't be as open as much as Justin Trudeau's involvement. No politicians would have been met. No international key stakeholders, influencers, the high and mighty would not be at the disposal of We Charity if not for Justin Trudeau. Believe me. It took Justin Trudeau's involvement for them to get into these rooms. But there has to be a price to be paid. And you know the rest. Let's continue.
Hindsight, let me be very candid. I wish we hadn't.
Their Toronto office now sits empty, the building up for sale. But a look at WE's website shows the organization is still soliciting donations, still promoting international projects. Corporate sponsors like RBC, KPMG, and Loblaws abandoned WE during the political storm. And so too did the Prime Minister. The Kielburgers learned there is no charity in politics. It's a game of survival.
Prime Minister Trudeau's never checked in just to see what was the outcome for you, to check in on you. What would you want him to know? What would you say to him now, if you could?
I'll say it for him. You fucked us. In a very, I would say, vulgar tone, but hey, in essence, you fucked us. The Kielburgers were fucked. But such is the life of, if you're going to live by the sword, you're going to die by the sword. And the We Charity, the Kielburgers, were propped up by the Canadian government, which allowed them international acclaim, corporate sponsorship, and, a sort of acclaim that was worldwide. But there was a price to be paid. Without his backing, without the Prime Minister's stewardship and a corruptive detail and payment to family, the We Charity's left twisting in the wind. Literally. And we have not heard from the We Charity pretty much again. So let me say this one more time. Yes, it took the Prime Minister to give the We Charity this elevated status, but without it, they were fucked.
I don't think I have words.
Who do you think was benefiting the most from this? The Kielburgers or the Trudeaus?
That's a hard question. Who was benefiting the most from the relationship between the Trudeaus and the Kilburgers? It really worked out well for both of them until it didn't.
Until it didn't. Well, yeah, you see, that's Mr. Kilburger as a kid. See, he was known as a bit of a know-it-all and well, precocious young lad. And it's unfortunate that that young man had to see the ugly side of politics, the ugly side of favor, and that many charities who have worked many years don't see at all. So do we feel sorry for the wheat charity? Probably not, because they lived by a sword and they died by it. And I think well, can we say that there is a racist element to this? Absolutely. Absolutely. And that adds to the huge pyre, the huge fire that is the Justin Trudeau, well, train wreck that he himself created. So again, I just saw this here. Neo-Marxist himbo Justin Trudeau finally realizes how loathed he is. Well, he is very much loathed, including by myself, and quite simply, I could not wait for that announcement, as previously stated, to come to pass. Now we come to this video by let me get this right here. The Visual Politique. Yes, indeed, a British entity, and they are commenting on Justin Trudeau's fall was inevitable in Canada. Now, this is more of we got into the weeds of his controversy, of his controversial time as Prime Minister. You know, some of his gaffes, some of his cringy moments, some of his highly reviewed controversies, including the wheat charity and also blackface. I call him P and blackface, quite simply. And now we're going to the macrocosm. What really is the reason why? What really is seen as the reason why Justin Trudeau is resigning as Prime Minister? And we're going to get into economy. We're going to get into immigration. We're going to get into a lot of things that have disavowed the Prime Minister as being popular in this country, and quite simply has led to his downfall. Let's continue. Shout out to Video Politique, doing wonderful things. YouTube streams, like and subscribe.
Trudeau has finally announced that he is stepping down. On the morning of 6th of January, the sitting Prime Minister of Canada made an unexpected press appearance at the official residence. Why? Well, to announce nothing less than his resignation, both from his position as Prime Minister and from the possibility of running for re-election in the next elections to be held later this year, in October at the latest.
I intend to resign as party leader, as Prime Minister, after the party selects its next leader through a robust, nationwide, competitive process. Last night, I asked the President of the Liberal Party to begin that process.
And he is certainly a guy who generates strong opinions. We're talking about a character who has lived for politics from a very young age. In fact, born on Christmas Day, 1971, he was the eldest son of the then 15th Prime Minister of Canada, Pierre Trudeau. So, as you can imagine, from a very young age, he received...
one of the better... Well, just get him off. Get this kid off my screen. One of the more revered prime ministers in this country's history is Pierre Elliott Trudeau, whose name I share. But again, he is he is seen as one of the top prime ministers this country has ever produced. And he ushered in a lot of great ideas and initiatives, including the immigration policy that brought my family here to this country and allowed me to be born here and be a Canadian citizen. So again, shout out to Pierre Elliott Trudeau.
son of the then 15th Prime Minister of Canada, Pierre Trudeau. So, as you can imagine, from a very young age, he received a lot of media attention. And guess what? Justin became wildly popular. In 2005, he married Sophie Gregoire, a Canadian media celebrity and the daughter of a millionaire in the financial industry. They soon became known as the Canadian Kennedys. And just 2 years later, Justin did what everyone expected him to do. He finally made the leap into politics. Curiously, he did so in a constituency where he did not have an easy time, but still managed to win by just over 1,000 votes. From that moment on, there was one thing that was a constant in his political career. Whenever Trudeau's defeat was considered certain, in one way or another, he always managed to turn the tables on it. And so, in 2015, thanks to his youth, his popularity, and his promises of renewal, he finally managed to become the 23rd Prime Minister of Canada. Since then, 9 years have passed, and now his political situation is completely different, to the point, as you have seen, of being forced to hang up his hat. But why has Trudeau decided to quit before the end of his term? In what state exactly does he leave Canada? Well, visual politic community, that's exactly what we're going to get into right now. Let's be clear, the Canadian Prime Minister was cornered on all fronts. Nationally, his approval rating had plunged to about 20%, meaning that nearly 8 out of 10 Canadians disapproved of his performance. Perhaps that's why the Conservative
Including me. Let's continue.
Party, the main opposition party, is far ahead in the polls, as we shall see. And to top it off, 59% of the supporters of his own political formation, the Liberal Party, were clamouring for his resignation. In fact, more than half of the voters who trusted this Prime Minister in the last elections of 2021 would give his management a fail. And of course, as you can imagine, such a dire situation has also caused a lot of trouble within his party. Don't forget that this year there are elections, and that many have their own jobs on the line, and are nervous about what is happening.
That if I'm having to fight internal battles, I cannot be the best option in that election.
But ultimately,
yes, indeed. So do keep in mind that with an unpopular prime minister, that means an unpopular party. So therefore, the representatives of that party, the members of parliament within that party, are going into elections later on this year with a pretty unpopular mandate and party in and of itself. So and prime minister. So therefore, their chances of re-election are slim, very slim, quite simply. Not the greatest time to be a Liberal MP going into seeking re-election. Now, again, if you've done enough work within your constituents with your constituency, then greater chance of you being a prime minister. But being elected back into office as a member of parliament. But a lot of MPs are going to lose their seat because of this unpopular prime minister, which they wish to head off at the pass through getting getting the stench of the prime minister off of them by going through a leadership campaign, backing a new leader, and therefore trying to change the views of the party by the Canadian people. However, that isn't really going to happen. So a lot of MPs are going to lose their seat and therefore their jobs as politicians. Let's continue.
The Prime Minister has stepped aside. Why now? Basically, because his political capital has run out. He is completely exhausted. To give you an idea, the latest polls show that with only a few months to go before the elections, voter intention for him barely exceeds 16%. And if this data were to materialise in the elections, we would be talking about nothing short of the worst result in the history of his party. And we aren't exactly talking about a new party. Take a look. Way back in the 1867 election, the Liberals received 22.7% of the vote. In the 43 federal elections since then, support for this party has only fallen below 30% on 3 occasions. In 1984, when they received 28% of the vote. In 2008, when they took 26.2% of the ballots. And in 2011, the only time, by the way, that the Liberals became the third force in Parliament, with 18.9% of the vote. Well, as you can see, the current 16% shown in the polls would be the worst result in 158 years. It's a political catastrophe that now puts even third place at risk for the Liberal Party. Of course,
There you go. So we are dealing with a prime minister. He's hugely unpopular. Hugely unpopular. And, yeah, he's going to throw, as I've already alluded to, the party into a third-party status, which is rare for the Liberal Party. Very, very rare. You're looking back in 1984 with John Turner. You're looking back in 2008 with Jean Chrétien. So, again, the Liberals have had this happen to them before, but it took them years to rebuild. They finally got a prime minister, and a mandate that have allowed them to be in office for 9 years, but I don't see them being in power for very long, for a long time thereafter. It's going to take a while for them to build their political capital back. Again, let's continue.
Everything indicates that they can forget about victory. The Conservatives are almost 30 points ahead of them. Visual politic community, Canadians have had enough of this Prime Minister, his party, and his policies. Take a look at these data. The last polls taken before the resignation announcements showed that 46% of Canadians called for his resignation, while another 38% argued that the situation was untenable and that the Prime Minister had to call an early election as soon as he returned from his Christmas vacation. In other words, 84% of Canadians were against Justin Trudeau seeing out his term. And that is how, in the end, logically, this Prime Minister had no other choice. But the real question is, what the hell has happened to get us to this point? Well, in order to understand this whole story, we have to go all the way back to 2015, when Trudeau was first elected Prime Minister. At that time, Justin came to power with what we can qualify as a kind of strategic bicephaly. On the one hand, unlike his father, who was a very left-wing politician, he pledged to respect the economic foundations of the country. That is, not to fatten the state too much, and to bet on private initiative and the market economy. At the same time, he became one of the icons of what was known as the New Left, and that today many would qualify without hesitation as a model of woke politics. We're talking about Justin Trudeau coming to power with a political and social agenda focused on climate action, reconciliation with Indigenous peoples.
Of which he never really reconciled with the Indigenous peoples. Yes, he called for a day of peace and reconciliation. Yes, that was through the that was one of his endeavors, one of his initiatives. So shout out to him for that. However, that's now considered a pseudo national holiday in this country. However, he's never really made good on the fact of giving many citizens of the reservation clean water. He never did get around to that. So even though he gave him a holiday, he took away clean water. Let's continue.
Gender parity, feminism, euthanasia, stronger gun control, LGBT rights, and so on and so forth. That is, in fact, what made him so loved and so hated at the same time. Be that as it may, the point is that for the first few years, this Prime Minister delivered. The Trudeau Liberals introduced child benefits, cut taxes for the middle class, and legalised recreational cannabis, all while defending free trade tooth and nail on the international agenda. This was a
Okay, yeah, indeed. One of his more popular mandates indeed was the legalizing of cannabis in this country, and which was, again, wildly popular. Wildly popular. I think it's one of the few countries in the West who have legalized cannabis altogether. And again, Trudeau's to be given credit for that, quite simply. Even though he's made a lot of mistakes, the one thing he did get right was indeed tax cuts to the middle class, and number two, legalizing pot. Let's continue.
Political agenda that allowed him to win the elections again in 2019 and also in 2021, although with less and less popular support and without parliamentary majorities. So what?
Remember that minority election? That minority election I was talking about? Yeah. That's that. There it is again. Yes, he was increasingly unpopular, and he needed minority governments in order to stay in power. Let's continue.
politician do? Well, what all politicians typically do. Start playing the entitlement card and the extension of free welfare, among other things, it must be said, because when he lost his majority in Parliament in 2019, he had to start making pacts with the Bloc Québécois and, above all, with...
That's Bloc Québécois. He said Bloc Québécois, which is extremely egregiously wrong. Let's continue.
The New Democratic Party, a party much further to the left, which logically determines the type of policies that Trudeau could bring forward. Nevertheless, he accepted that turn of events. He is responsible for everything that happened. And this is when the problems really started. As Trudeau governments focused more on social policy, they forgot about the things that grow a country's economy. So the results started to be quite bad. Do you want an example? Well, here we have, without going any further. The case of housing. The policy of opening doors to millions of immigrants from all over the world was not accompanied by facilities to build homes. The result? Faced with a shortage of supply, prices skyrocketed. Specifically, since 2019, house prices have increased by almost 40%, making Canada one of the OECD countries with the highest house price-to-income ratio. And then to top it all off, the rate hike was the final straw. In short, bad management. Another example, the lack of control of public accounts, at least by local standards. The results have been so bad in recent years that 2024 closed like this.
Fiscal update reveals a $62 billion...
Okay, so yeah, just as he was explaining there, housing prices in Canada skyrocketed as supply fell way behind demand. Couple that with an immigration policy that was unabated, that didn't call for quality control, and a certain segment we won't call out any real segment of society. Let's just say this: with the influx of immigration, and may I say this, well entitled, well endowed in terms of financially immigration, they helped skyrocket housing prices along with the lack of supply of housing. So we are, let's say, in the city of Toronto, dealing with housing prices on average of at least, near going on to $1 million for a house within the city, which is untenable for many, and I do mean many, inhabitant of the city of Toronto, and it has become a crisis now, to a point where there is a mass exodus from the cities in order to find viable housing throughout the Golden Horseshoe, if not in Canada in and of itself. So it has been a huge clusterfuck created by this Prime Minister, indeed. Let's continue.
Canadian dollars deficit.
Let's see, it's not much. We're talking about $44 billion US, a little more than 2% of GDP. It seems almost a joke compared to the huge budget gaps of the United States and many European countries. But no matter, the problem is that on the one hand, Canada has a certain aversion to debt. In fact, over on Visual Economic, we already told you how Canada's financial system is the soundest in the world, and it is that way because Canadians are extremely cautious. On the other hand, this deficit announcement means that the budget gap is 50% higher than projected. In other words, the economy is grinding to a halt, and this is causing revenue forecasts not to be met, which is creating a mismatch in the public accounts that the government simply did not see coming.
So again, widely unpopular, a widely unfunctioning economy that is raising the deficit within the nation to unprecedented heights, even though they're manageable, but still unprecedented, has made this Prime Minister widely unpopular and has forced his hand in terms of his electability. Let's continue.
Feeling that the government has lost touch with economic reality is widespread throughout much of the country. A country, by the way, where more than 50% of citizens consider the Trudeau government's public spending to be too high. In other words, they want less spending. and not more. But okay.
Well, here's the thing about the Liberal Party that's always been the case is that, and even in the to Mr. Trudeau's father in Mr. Trudeau's Father's Day, this is a tax and spend sort of party. So therefore, they will tax the middle class and the rich in order to give out services to many Canadians, and that is not exactly good for for economy that wishes to expand. So liberal politics are reaching its denouement at the end of the day, and again, the pendulum is swinging in the other way, in which more conservative initiatives and advocacies regarding the economy are starting to take hold and take shape. Let's continue.
That's still not enough. Do you want more evidence of how he finally lost it? Well, take another example. Under Trudeau's leadership, the number of public employees in the federal government expanded by approximately 43%, while the population barely grew by 17%. The problem? Well, none of what we're seeing has served to boost economic growth, which has lagged far, far behind that of its southern neighbour, the United States. And yes, this is one of those cases where a picture is worth 1,000 words. In fact, the IMF forecasts that Canada's per capita national income, which was roughly 80% that of the United States in the decade before the pandemic, will be only 70% of Uncle Sam's in 2025. This is the lowest level in decades, and is what some are already coming to call the Great Divergence. This is largely due to the fact that under Trudeau, Canadian companies have invested much less than US companies. There are times when political messages and regulatory changes that seem small at first glance end up having a huge effect. Of course, at the helm of the country during all this time has been Justin Trudeau, so it's entirely logical that Canadians hold him responsible for this situation.
So therefore, as stated before, it's the Canadian government is been left with the responsibility of disallowing families from taking part in this growing economy, and only a certain few being allowed to do that. So it's it's sort of problematic because the shifting sands of the economy have affected us all. But again, once you're the incumbent prime minister, you're there to deal with the fallout of a failing and flailing economy in and of itself. So again, for right or for wrong, Justin Trudeau has to bear the responsibility of this near recession-like economy, and add to that the fact of a growing, unprecedented public sector. Doesn't bode well for a prime minister who should be trying to limit government in order to allow for limit government spending in order to allow for a better flowing government and economy in and of itself. Let's continue.
Be that as it may, the fact is that these we have seen are just a few examples of a country that is now suffering. Firstly, with an economic crisis. Secondly, with a political crisis linked to migration. And thirdly, an increase in living costs, especially, as we have seen, in housing prices. And that is hitting the standard of living of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of Canadians very hard. And that's not even all. Apart from that, Justin is one of those politicians who is made by and for the cameras. Always looking for the gesture, always making big promises of change, transformation, reinvention, and reconciliation, always with the big grandiloquent words. And what's the problem with so much exposure and so many expectations? Well, it's very easy to start disappointing left and right. Precisely what has happened. For instance, in the end, the Indigenous people have accused him of using them only to win votes. And something
indeed, he has used them to win votes, quite simply, especially through the education reconciliation day of education reconciliation. Please excuse my my lack of knowledge of the actual title at this point in time, but also the fact that he failed to deliver with regards to making life easier for those who live on for our Aboriginal brethren who live on reservations, and not allowing for them to find better pathways to better lives on the reservation or without. So again, he's using them as a indeed, as a pawn in his political game. Let's continue.
Similar has happened with his international policy. You see, Justin, who was born and raised in power circles, wanted Canada to play a starring role in international politics. And the truth, for years, he almost succeeded. However, some time ago, things started to go awry. The relationship with China fell apart following the arrest in Canada of Huawei executive Meng Wanzhou. And in India, another of this politician's big bets, it was a very similar story when Trudeau himself denounced the Modi government for planning to assassinate a Khalistani terrorist on Canadian soil. And let's see, maybe this is not something to criticize, but of course, the point is that Trudeau's good-natured policy meant that, in the end, when New Delhi and Beijing began to feel uncomfortable with Canada, they wanted to give him a slap on the wrist. They had the country in their sights, and not much respect for his government. You could say that Trudeau stepped right into the eye of the hurricane. And, well, what am I going to tell you about Donald Trump? Trudeau was a great fit with Barack Obama, but not with the Make America Great Agains. And not because he didn't try, but the positions are irreconcilable. To the point that, these days, Trump, every now and then, not only threatens Canada with new tariffs, but also raises the idea of Canada becoming the 51st state of the United States.
If Canada merged with the US, there would be no tariffs, taxes would go way down, and they would be totally secure from the threat of Russian and Chinese ships that are constantly surrounding them. Together, what a great nation it would be.
Yeah, so again, as stated, Justin and Donald never really truly got along. They were civil, but they never had a special relationship like Justin had with Barack Obama during his second term as president of the United States. And it's I think for the sake of keeping things peaceful between our nations, Justin had to go. Justin needed to go. I think Mr. Poilievre would be a much better choice in terms of being being sort of a an olive branch to the Americans. But again, it's not outside the realm of possibility for Donald to keep saber rattling in his own eloquent way. And things are not very good, especially with the threatening of tariffs by Donald Trump. The relations are not at their best at the moment between Canada and the United States. Even though we do, we're quite friendly with each other. The fact of the matter is, we're not at the best of terms at this point in time. Let's continue.
Beyond being absurd, is a blow to his government. It's a kind of humiliation to which Trudeau has not been able to respond this time.
Trump mocked Prime Minister Justin Trudeau as the governor of the great state of Canada.
Why could he not respond? Basically, as we have told you, because his political capital is already totally exhausted.
That's right. So he's an unpopular prime minister, so he can't respond to it. He knows he's on his last legs and he's resigned. He's a lame duck prime minister. He's lame duck. So any sort of response, nobody will reply to that. They'll actually cheer the fact that Donald has mocked the prime minister because he's a wildly unpopular prime minister at this time. Let's continue.
Visual politic community on the 10th of December, his Minister of Finance, one of the heavyweights of his government, resigned. From there began a real political torture, to the point that a vote of no confidence by the Parliament was considered likely. Perhaps that is what Trudeau wanted to avoid by bringing forward his resignation. And this is everything that explains the movements we have seen in the last few hours, and the announcement of this Prime Minister's departure. And the question is, what now? Well, his party, the Liberal Party, is floundering in the polls. And the truth, its political agenda is exhausted.
Whoever ascends to the leadership may well face snap elections, and there is a real risk that the party could fall to third or even fourth place. It also faces the stark choice between pivoting back towards the political centre or cementing its alliance with the leftist NDP.
Yes, indeed. It's, as already stated, this This party has no political currency. It's wildly unpopular. They will lose the election this time round. They will take huge losses, and it's all because of a wildly unpopular prime minister, and his policies that have thrown us into the brink of a recession, and his handling on many policies, including the weed charity scandal, COVID, and his wildly now unpopular stance on woke politics has thrown his party into a political landslide. Let's continue.
Of course, anything can happen, but it is foreseeable that now it will be the Conservatives who will take the helm. And what will this mean? Well, according to his promises, lower taxes and putting the government to work to regain national competitiveness. Exactly what Canadians want. Because beyond the social policies of this Prime Minister, the truth is that 2 out of 3 Canadians want taxes to go down. Check this out.
If the Conservatives prevail, you'll find a more pro-business, pro-resource extraction, smaller government, smaller spending, tougher on crime kind of a government.
It appears.
In other words, what we're seeing in the United States right now, that's exactly what the United States citizens voted on a couple months ago. They wanted a government of low taxes, of tough on crime. Here it is. They wanted a pro-business, pro-resource extraction, smaller government, smaller spending, tougher on crime kind of government. That's exactly what the Americans wanted themselves. So that's why they voted in Donald Trump. Woke politics that was advocated by the Democrats in the United States and here liberals here in Canada is widely unpopular these days. And they are suffering because of it, and Kamala suffered because of it in the United States, and now Trudeau's being thrown out as prime minister here in Canada because of it. As the world, especially the developed world, is starting to swing more right-wing politics, not more towards the right wing, still centrist, but more towards the right wing in terms of its economic outlook. Let's continue.
More pro-business, pro-resource extraction, smaller government, smaller spending, tougher on crime kind of a government.
It appears Justin Trudeau wanted to embody a new generation of politicians and a new bet, a sort of third way that would be able to combine a pro-market economy prosperity with a clear bet on very left-wing social policies. Whatever the case, that time has come to an end. Some are saying in Canada that if the House of Representatives votes against the government's budget measures next March, and Trudeau has not yet been replaced...
It's not really a House of Representatives, it's a House of Parliament, but there you go.
...formally withdrawn, the parliamentary vote could trigger an election in which he would remain leader. Let's see, anything can happen, but the truth, with the numbers at hand, it doesn't seem feasible. Chances are that by now, Justin's political career has, purely and simply, come to an end. So the question is, what is your opinion of this
Indeed, my opinion is good riddance, quite simply. I'm just resigning to, letting my real feelings show there. But again, let's just go to this final bit. Now, this is an 8-minute video, so this will show you the political implications of the next election, quite simply. And what has happened controversially with regards to Justin Trudeau. So it's an 8-minute video by TDLR News, another British another British group here, and subscribe to them here on YouTube. Doing wonderful things in these YouTube streets. TLDR News Global, quite simply. And again, they're going to give you a breakdown on what Canada's going through electorally, and why indeed, and what lies in store for Justin Trudeau going forward and his party going forward. Let's continue.
Reported that Justin Trudeau, Prime Minister of Canada, was planning to step down from his post.
The news broke as Trudeau was coming under pressure from both the opposition and his own Liberal Party, and his resignation will probably have been formally announced by the time we release this video. Trudeau has been the leader of Canada for 9 years now, and his stepping aside looked likely to kick off what will be a dynamic year in Canadian politics. So in this video, we'll take a look at why Trudeau is resigning, who's likely to replace him, and if that'll change anything for the Canadian Liberals come election time. Never miss an episode and always feel in the loop by subscribing and ringing the bell. First, why is Trudeau resigning? Well, the proximate cause seems to have been the resignation of Deputy Prime Minister and Finance Minister Chrystia Freeland last month, the fifth minister to resign from Trudeau's government in a year. Freeland had reportedly been...
There you go. You see all the ministers who have resigned within the year from his cabinet. A lot of highly regarded and very substantive cabinet posts, such as Renu Boissonneau in the Minister of Employment, Sean Fraser in Minister of Housing and Infrastructure and Communities, Pablo Rodriguez, Minister of Transport, Seamus O'Regan, who is a friend of the Prime Minister. Yes, he is not one from being nepotistic in and of itself, Seamus O'Regan. I think he's one of his best men at his wedding, quite simply. Minister of Seniors, and Chrystia Freeland, the Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance, who is the biggest portfolio to and politician to leave his cabinet, and pretty much signaled the death knell for Justin Trudeau in and of itself.
Arguing with Trudeau over his recent 2-month tax holiday, which Trudeau announced despite a rising budget deficit. And in her resignation letter, she implied that she didn't think Trudeau would be able to deal with the newly elected President Trump. Trump, who's threatened Canada with substantial tariffs when he comes into office, has recently been mocking Trudeau as the, quote, Governor of Canada, and suggested that Canada could join the US as the 51st state, despite a visit by Trudeau to Mar-a-Lago last month in an attempt to smooth relations over. Anyway, after Freeland resigned, dozens of Liberal MPs came out to call for Trudeau's resignation, and the NDP, who had previously propped up Trudeau's minority government by refusing to vote against it during no-confidence votes, announced a few days later that their party would oust Trudeau when the House of Commons resumes in January, which would have triggered a spring election. However, while Freeland's resignation might have been the trigger for Trudeau's resignation, the overarching reason that Trudeau has been forced out is that he's just remarkably unpopular. We did a full video on this last month, so go watch that if you want to know more. But the latest poll released by the Angus Reid Institute, a Canadian polling organisation, put Trudeau at an approval rating of just 22%, the lowest a Prime Minister has gotten in 30 years, and one of the lowest in history. Perhaps most worryingly for Trudeau, even a majority of Liberals said they didn't approve of the job he was doing, and polling suggested the Liberals were on track for a wipeout at the next election, which is...
So again, we're dealing with an unpopular president who's only in a minority government, who's high-profile politicians and cabinet cabinet members are leaving his party within the last year. It was a signal of the worst, and quite simply, he wasn't going to survive long here as Prime Minister. So he decided to resign. And I don't see the Liberal Party being brought back to prominence anytime soon within the next 5 to 10 years. Let's continue.
Due in October. Anyway, what's next for the Liberals? Well, according to the Liberal Party constitution, Trudeau's resignation will automatically kick off a new leadership race, which would usually take 4 to 6 months. However, the difficulty for Trudeau and the Liberals is that they can expect to be ousted via a no-confidence vote once the House of Commons resumes sitting, which could happen as early as January the 30th, 3 days after Parliament resumes sitting. This would give the Liberals just a month to agree a new leader, which means that unless they decide to rush their election, or unless the NDP U-turn and decide to support the Liberals while they do their leadership election, Trudeau will have to prorogue Parliament. For context, in Canadian politics and in other Westminster-style systems, the Prime Minister can call for a prorogation of the Parliament to suspend legislative business without formally dissolving it, which is what Boris Johnson did in the UK back in 2019 to prevent the UK Parliament from passing legislation that would preclude a no-deal Brexit. However, there are at least two problems with this plan. First, a federal budget is due for renewal in late March 2025, and the Parliament needs to be in session for its approval, which at least makes it harder for Trudeau to prorogue Parliament beyond this point. But second, any prorogation will likely be challenged in the courts, as Boris Johnson's was in 2019, although, like Johnson, Trudeau might be able to get away with it if the legal challenge takes too long. Another bit of evidence suggesting that Trudeau could get away with it is what happened in 2008.
So just before he goes on to explain that, yes, it's the government has a lot of business to get done within the next few months, including the outlay of the economic budget. So it is highly imperative that government is being allowed to go on, and so the vote, a non-confidence vote by the NDP would trigger a proroguing of Parliament and an election in due course, which will not allow government to do its business. So it'll be highly, highly, highly unpopular. So I very much don't see the NDP giving a vote of non-confidence at this time until Justin Trudeau and the Liberal Party can get their affairs in order, get out a budget, and allow for a good amount of government business to be continued until a spring or a summer election can be called, and which will allow for the government to do its business in good order and in good peaceful conduct, not allowing for the overturning of government and really slowing a lot of government business from being conducted. Let's continue.
Prime Minister Stephen Harper successfully prorogued Parliament to avoid a no-confidence motion planned by the opposition parties. Anyway, if the Liberals can find a way to do a leadership race, the odds-on favourite to be the new Liberal Party leader is Chrystia Freeland. Numerous Liberal MPs expressed support for Freeland during her resignation, and in a caucus meeting before the holidays, she was given a standing ovation by her party colleagues. Former Bank of Canada Governor Mark Carney is also expected to make a run, with reports stating he's reaching out to dozens of Liberal MPs to gauge interest.
But here's the thing. The thing about the election... Hold on, let me just...
Candidates include Foreign Affairs Minister Mélanie Joly, Minister of Innovation François-Philippe Champagne, and new Finance Minister Dominic LeBlanc.
So the problem with all these candidates running for new leadership is it is a poison chalice in that, yes, you can be leader of the Liberal Party for foreseeable future. However, you won't be the party in power. It's pretty much a write-off. This is just a formal game that's allowed to be played in order to elect a new leader of said party, but they will not be prime minister. None of these candidates will be prime minister. They'll only be leadership of the party. So, leader of the party. So they'll never get their shot at being prime minister for a good amount of time, quite simply. So, and I very much doubt they'll be leader of the opposition if not given the opportunity in of itself. That's how widely unpopular the Liberal Party are in terms of their popularity. Let's continue.
That being said, there is an unofficial convention in the Liberal Party going back to 1887 that Anglophones and Francophones alternate leadership of the party. With Trudeau being a Francophone, it seems that Freeland or Carney will be the choices for Liberal Party members, although both candidates come with issues. Freeland could plausibly lose her seat in University Rosedale, with 338 candidate giving her odds at around 60%, while Carney isn't even a sitting MP. As a final thing, will Trudeau's resignation save the Liberals? Well, probably not. The last-minute resignation of an unpopular incumbent is a classic move in Canadian politics, but it rarely, if ever, works in modern times. This happened to Trudeau's father, Pierre Elliott Trudeau, when he was forced out by the Liberal Party in 1984 and replaced by John Turner. Turner failed to turn the tide against Grits and got blown out by Brian Mulroney and the Progressive Conservatives. Then, 9 years later...
So therefore, you're seeing history repeating itself from 1984 to 2005, where the Conservatives will assume office and will take on the seat. We're going to end it here on IG. So thank you very much for joining me in Talk Live on IG and YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. Again, thank you, Justin Trudeau, but no thank you. And yeah, good riddance and goodbye, PM Blackface. Good night from Toronto. Yes, we're just going to continue things here on YouTube, and yes, we're going to just finish this up and give a final curtain to this charade of a prime ministership, and and as I've already alluded to here already, the prime minister. I mean, history is repeating itself once again, as in 1984. Pierre Elliott Trudeau's government was widely unpopular. He resigned. John Turner took over, but he was thrown out by a huge majority, an overwhelming mandate from the Canadian people for the Conservatives and Brian Mulroney. However, as will be stated here, Brian Mulroney soon himself became unpopular as a prime minister, and he was, for lack of a better word, turfed out himself. Let's continue.
Mulroney became intensely unpopular, and he was ousted in favour of Kim Campbell. But she could not prevent the Progressive Conservatives from losing 154 seats in the 1993 election. Losing so badly, the party could not recover and eventually dissolved. Currently, the Liberals are polling at 16%, the lowest since 2011, and according to 338 Canada, aren't even projected to become the official opposition, as they're currently behind the Bloc Québécois. All in all, while it's hard to see any candidate, Freeland or Carney included, who could lead the Liberals to victory at the next election, getting rid of Trudeau might be enough to help the Liberals to second place, which would mean they get to be the official opposition. This leaves Canadian politics in a precarious position, especially with new leaders all over the world and also at their southern border vying for power and influence. The question is then, who'll come out on top? Who is the world's most influential person? That's what we're trying to find out with our most influential...
Okay, well, that we'll leave there. As this is an initiative from TLDR. And we thank them for their explanation of what's next for as Trudeau resigns, quite simply. So let's just get back to the full cam here, and we can end on this show as it's just over the 2-hour mark. Justin Trudeau, good riddance to Justin Trudeau, in my estimation. He is, I think, his woke and left-wing politics has run its course, putting this country into debt, putting this and making himself and his party wildly unpopular, and the country's in need of a change, quite simply, and it's usually it's a fatigue that usually lasts into the 9th and 10th year of the prime ministership, and rarely do you see politicians going for an extended period of time, as Justin's father did, Pierre Elliott Trudeau. I think he lasted in 15 to 16 years, quite simply, and that's one of the longest reigns of the prime minister in Canadian history. So again, we are at a crossroads here. where we indeed will see a conservative prime ministership of Pierre Poilievre, and a change as was seen in 1984 with Brian Mulroney. So, what do I think of Justin Trudeau's prime ministership? I think he had good intentions. There are certain things he did well, including legalizing pot, including lowering taxes for in households in his first iteration as a prime minister. But over time, I think he became quite cringeworthy. I think he was involved in a lot of controversies that tarnished his prime ministership, including the weed charity controversy, and he became a wildly unpopular prime minister. And especially in this day and age where conservatism is at the forefront and at its height, and Justin Trudeau is seen as a man whose meaning is aiming to please his public as much as possible and to a greater extent as possible. It's being a bit of a lemming and a not a trailblazer, but a woke follower and such. I think his time here is ended. I think especially it really did end in essence during his vaccination mandates and his COVID controversies, in which he became a seriously unsavory prime minister. And again, I really, I think, in my estimation, when he put on the blackface, it was pretty much over for me. So thank you, Justin Trudeau, and good riddance, Justin Trudeau, because it's about bloody time. Thank you very much for joining me on Talk the Talk live on IG and YouTube. Like, subscribe, comment on the road to 1,000 subscribers. We'll see you next time. Tomorrow night, we're back again. We'll either a choice between the controversy that's happening at Fox Sports, or indeed the new action launched by Drake with regards to defamation against Kendrick Lamar for the song "They Not Like Us," going against everything I've asked for Drake not to do going into